you've got the vision, the ideas, and the big picture thinking, but nothing ever gets done and you are just stuck in the chaos, then this video is for you. So today we are going to talk about how to build systems and structures that work for you as a creative visionary without crushing your flow. So here's the deal. Visionaries are often like big picture thinkers, and sometimes when we have to start operating inside of a structure or a system, it can start to feel like we are working inside of a crimp or a cramp, right? These systems can start to feel restrictive or boring. They can be hard to maintain because, especially for an ADHD entrepreneur, our brains thrive on novelty. And so when things start to become too much of the same old, it starts to become something that we just don't actually have any motivation to do. So the key here isn't to force traditional structures. It is to create flexible systems that work with how your brain operates. So I've worked with a lot of creatives and ADHD visionaries and entrepreneurs, and what I have noticed is that when things have to be done on a recurring basis, especially if it has to be done like daily or multiple times per week, if there is not some sort of element that is novel and new to keep it from getting overly mundane, then it just tends to get not done. For example, when I was relatively early in starting Grow Disrupt and I was doing all of the work and all of the pieces and all of the everything, because that's what you do when you start your business, I was supposed to be doing I would do the presentation to generate the leads, and then I was supposed to be doing follow-up on the back end for individuals who had expressed interest. And the problem was that was something that ended up having to be done either every day or every couple of days, and it was a lot of the same old. Leave a voicemail, make a note. Leave a voicemail, make a note. And I just wasn't doing it. So what I discovered the best thing for me to do was to actually just get that taken off my plate. I have turned my individual follow-ups into something that happens once every 7 to 10 days because I don't want it to become too boring and predictable. But I have turned the more consistent follow-up into something that I offloaded to one of my team members. So I generate the leads, I send the initial email, which is easy enough for me to do because it doesn't get done constantly. And then I send the leads over to Rachel, who ends up doing the follow-up on the back end because that's something she's much, much better at being consistent with. Even just taking that tiny little task off my plate allowed me to be freed up energetically and emotionally to have conversations with people when it was time to actually have conversations with people. It freed me up to actually enjoy when I am doing the individual follow-up with people because I'm not having to feel like I'm chasing them down constantly. So I've got a 3-step process to help you build a system that will work with your brain and work with you to keep you freed up to be creative. Step number 1, start by identifying the friction points. So I typically tell people to start with an energy advantage exercise, something where you track all of the activity that you're doing for maybe a couple of weeks. And I encourage people to track detailed steps. First of all, it's only a couple of weeks. You don't have to do this forever, but if you can keep detailed track of what you are doing for a couple of weeks, then you can actually start to break that down and score things 1 through 4. So if you have tracked not just sending the email to your mailing list, but maybe actually creating the content for the email, creating the graphics for the email, and then inputting that into your emailing system, and then scheduling it to go out and checking it for clarity, those each would get an individual item, because then you want to be able to score it and say, okay, so step number 1 is creating the content. Is that a 1, 2, 3, or 4? With 1s being something that generates energy and revenue. So for me, I enjoy creating content. I enjoy talking to the people who are in my network and want to engage with me. So I really enjoy creating content, including our newsletters. Now, that's not necessarily revenue generating, so it wouldn't be a number 1, but it would be a number 2, which is generates energy and doesn't generate revenue. Number 3s would be stuff that generate revenue, but no energy. So it doesn't get me excited. It doesn't upset me, but just is there, but it directly generates revenue. And that might be something like sending the email out to individuals who have participated in a training. That is that initial email, right? That is one of the first steps in order to get them into the sales process, right? So I don't mind doing it. It's easy enough to do. It's not that boring, and it can be a direct revenue generator. 4s are going to be things that don't generate revenue and don't generate energy. So once you have your list, start to identify what are my 3s and my 4s that need to come off my plate. And those are the things that you're going to want to start to figure out how to automate and systemize. Now, as a quick side note on this one of the things you may notice is that you may have to skip a week or 2 in order to get ahead. For example, on our social media content, I create all of the original content and I put notes on what I want for the graphic inside of the document that I then send to my graphic designer. But I'm creating all of our content to go out on social media 2 weeks in advance. I create it the week prior, then my graphic designer has a week to actually create the graphics to send it to me for it to go out that third week, basically, after I create the content. Now, when we set this up originally, it meant that I had to create a couple weeks worth of content and a week of graphics in order to set up the system and let it flow. There are also the options of just saying, hey, you know what? I'm just going to basically skip a week. No one's going to notice that much. It's not that big a deal. Cut yourself some slack and realize that as you're getting your system set up, things may be a little bit slower than they were when you were doing everything, and that's okay. Primarily because it's going to free you up to do things faster and better afterwards. Step number 2 is simplify before you systemize. There is absolutely no reason to automate clutter. There are probably things you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, your business doesn't need you to do, so do yourself a favor and identify the things that you're doing that maybe aren't producing results or just really don't need to be automated. So on your list of things of 3s and 4s, the things that you're looking at going, why are we even doing this? Just cut it. If it causes problems, you can bring it back later, but for the most part, simplify your life. And number 3 is document. Now, in order to do this, you are going to need to figure out what process you want to do. I usually recommend, especially if this is one of your first systems, like make your life really simple and just like throw it into a Word doc for right now. You may even actually just go to like an AI chatbot and say, hey, I need to create a system or a process for how to do this project. Here's roughly what I currently do. Could you create an SOP out of it? And then read over it, adjust it, identify what you can outsource, maybe put that section in bold, and then send it to your VA. One of the best tips that I can give you when you are setting up systems to get things off your plate that are crimping your flow and pushing you into chaos because you are having to do all of the pieces of everything in your life is to remember to start small and just start getting things off your plate. For example, I have been wanting to get my bathroom organized more recently, and the problem is that it's kind of been an overwhelming task. I have so many bottles and so many things on my counter that it's just kind of gotten pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'll deal with this next month, and next month has turned into next quarter. And so what I decided was, you know what, I don't have to do it perfectly right off the bat. I'm just going to pick up like one container in order to start organizing some of these bottles and getting some of this organized a little bit. And picking up one container has turned into picking up 2 and picking up 3 and picking up 4. And because I picked them up a little bit at a time, it made it a lot easier to get that one section of the counter cleaned up. So do yourself a favor. Don't feel like you have to get everything cleaned up and perfect right off the bat. Pick a small piece, a number 4 off your energy advantage list, and get that cleaned up first. If you're struggling with where to start on things, one of my favorite tools is one I talk about quite frequently called goblin.tools. Yes, goblin.tools. And if you put in and say, hey, I need to organize my bathroom, it will then break it down, and you can say, hey, I want more detailed steps, I want fewer detailed steps, but it'll take all of the brain power out of having to figure out, like, what do I actually do to get this project going? Like creating a system or an SOP. If you have been stuck in the chaos because you've been trying to get everything systemized and organized and like get everything pulled together right off the bat, first and foremost, I want you to remember that you're not broken because everything you've been trying hasn't been working and hasn't been taking off. Secondly, I want you to remember that your brain functions a little bit differently. We try and do all of these big changes, especially because we see someone who has like accomplished whatever it is we want to accomplish. They've got 432 systems like laid out and they make it look really easy. And we lose sight of the fact that that person started with 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. So do yourself a huge favor here. Cut yourself some slack. Just find one small thing to get systemized and offloaded from your plate. Even if it's something simple and personal. The first thing that I offloaded from my plate was cleaning my house because I realized I was not actually enjoying it. I liked having a clean house, but not the actual cleaning process. And just doing that freed me up because it gave me my weekends back to relax, to actually be able to dive in further and more efficiently at work the next week. So pick one area of chaos in your life today. Make it a game. Make it fun. And find a way to start to pull the chaos out a little bit at a time, even if it's just starting with the bathroom counter.